Welcome to Nations of Coaches in-season growth series. My name is Barclay Radebaugh, and we are excited to see you, coaches. Thank you for joining us. At Nations of Coaches, our goal is to connect, serve, and equip. We want to help coaches leave a legacy of excellence. We want to help coaches grow so they can effectively influence all for the glory of God. Today, the subject of our growth series is achieving a higher level of nutrition. We're going to learn in detail some important nutrition facts on how we can be successful in helping our players reach a level of nutrition that will be beneficial to them on and off the court. Our special guest today is Melissa Crowson. Melissa is a wife to Eric, a mom to Bo and Jamie and Connor, and really one of our nation's most influential and impactful experts in nutrition for high performance college athletes. Coaches, you're going to love this. Get your pens out, get your paper out, a lot of notes. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you.
For our in-season growth series. We are so fortunate to have you, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It is a privilege.
All right, Melissa, you're one of these professionals that has a ton of letters behind your name. I had coach in front of my name. You got a lot of letters. So here we go. RD, Registered Dietitian. CSCS, Certified Strength and Conditioning Coach. MS, Masters of Science in Nutrition. You are well prepared. Amazing. Your first book is out.
Yes.
Entitled Renew, Real Nutrition for a Strong Self-Image. You have been so busy. You've worked on the staffs at Winthrop, Liberty, Louisville, and the University of Florida. And now you are currently working independently with 8 Division I universities as a guide for their nutrition as they try to win a bunch of games.
Yes.
And so thank you. It is so exciting to have you here with us. We at Nations of Coaches want to help coaches grow, and we want to help them be successful. And nutrition played a big part during my coaching career. How did you get interested in nutrition and helping high-level athletes perform better because they're working with a nutritionist?
Well, it started for me with a coach. My track coach was really into nutrition, and so I saw my performance change with how I ate. And then when I was at the University of Florida, so I always loved nutrition, but when I was at the University of Florida, I was actually in ministry there with Athletes in Action, and there was no female present. So my job was just to establish something. There was no formal ministry. So I was at practices and I was at training table, and I had a lot of athletes to eat at my house all the time. And so I started observing a lot of food habits and realizing the players that complained of nagging injuries and were constantly frustrated with their performance were eating very differently than the players that were really excelling and beating their limits and kind of maximizing their performance. So I started noticing those food habits and differences there, and really wanted to really go in the field full time.
Oh, wow. Well, you are well prepared. I noticed in preparation that your faith is important to you. How do you combine your faith and nutrition?
Western philosophy likes to fractionate the person and separate everything out. Your mental health's over here, your physical health is here, your spiritual health is somewhere, whatever you think about. And science has shown it's all one system, and it really all works together. So as I walk a road with people physically about their physical health, it often gives opportunity to talk about spiritual things. Had a football player one time that the athletic trainer and I were trying to help because he was throwing up at every practice. And after a week of nothing working with nutrition or medications, I told him, I said, hey, the chaplain is standing right there. And I think if you asked him to pray for you, it could help with the stress and the things that are happening with practice in this arena, making you throw up. He met with the chaplain. He never threw up again. So, I'm like, nutrition is a very valuable tool, but it's not a savior. And there's a lot of opportunity to get to the deeper root issues when we start with physical health. It gives a lot of opportunity to go deeper. So,
oh, wow. It's amazing how God opens opportunities to talk about Jesus in every field. I'm so thankful for what you do. All right, here we go. You ready?
Ready.
Coaches, we have in our preparation for this growth series, I've asked Melissa to focus on four areas that I think will help us as coaches as we prepare for our seasons, in our seasons, preparing for our tournament, and then we operate on all different budgets. And so she's done a great job preparing. So our first question for you, Melissa, when I was a coach and I thought about the word nutrition, I thought about weight gain or weight loss. I got to get this power forward up to 225, or we got to get this young man down to a sleek 185, a point guard. We got to lose a few pounds. Nutrition is so much more than that. And just in reading what you have written, it's a tremendous competitive edge, isn't it?
That's what I believe, and that's what I see for sure. So it is the food that is essential. You have to have it for life and growth. In sport, we think adaptation and transformation. And so living foods that were once alive, and they resemble their closest form to when they were alive. So you see we have our fats, our vegetables and fruits, and our protein. And so a piece of chicken, not a chicken nugget. Chicken nuggets have about 30 plus chemicals in them. So they're not really a food, they're more of a chemical. So I say nutrition is real food at the right time. So this is our real food. This is what we want the majority of our diet to be like. And it's the competitive edge for two reasons. Number one, it's an internal stimulus. It goes inside your body. And number two, it builds intrinsic motivation. So an internal stimulus, when you eat food, it is interacting with the environment inside your body on a cellular level. It can toggle on and off genes. It's very powerful. So we think about sport and training your athletes. Everything else they're getting is an external stimulus. It happens outside their body. When you want them to study and learn plays in the off-season, preseason, as we get ready for game time, they're going to do a lot of game film. They're going to practice these plays. They're going to study and try to memorize. And what you're trying to do is the goal, obviously, of learning and building mental acuity is so that they can react in a pressure situation and execute quickly. So that is the goal. And you're trying to influence their brain. But their brain, everything you're doing is kind of outside of the body. When we eat food, it can interact with what's going on inside the body. So if you're even 2% dehydrated, then the way that the nerves are transmitted and the signal slows down. So we think of basketball, a game of speed. We can't have a reaction time that's slowed by even 0.5 seconds. That is the making the shot and getting open and not. So just 2% dehydration slows our reaction time. If you are lacking essential fatty acids in the diet, then it changes the structure of your cell membrane and your neurons. So actually the type of fats that you're taking in your body, fried chicken or avocado, is reflected in the membranes of your neurons. So as a contact sport, that's very important when we think about neuronal plasticity and the ability to form new memories and grow and adapt. You have to have strong integrity in your neurons, and that comes a lot from your diet. So 90% of your neurotransmitters are formed in the gut. So if your gut is not healthy, you're not producing the neurotransmitters that you need to have a healthy, sharp mind. So that's one example. And obviously, when you're putting food in your body, it gives you change from the inside out. So instead of trying to change the athlete outside in, food can change them inside out. The second thing is that it builds intrinsic motivation. I think we all know that athlete that shows up early, stays late. You don't have to ride them. They do what they're supposed to do. They motivate the other team. They're a leader, and they really own their performance. What would it look like if your entire team or your entire starting lineup was intrinsically motivated? They were motivated by what's in here. They didn't need your applause or your reprimand. They didn't need the applause of the crowd or their parents. They didn't need the external stimulus to do and to be disciplined. They just did it because they love the game. They love what they do, and they're motivated by in here. Nutrition is a very tangible way to build that because it takes work, and you only see results when it's consistent. So you really don't have anyone cheering you on when it's 10 o'clock and you're hungry and you're in front of your refrigerator and you're having to make a food decision. You don't have anyone cheering you on when all your friends are hanging out on the weekend, and you're taking time to meal prep and plan out and make a plan of what you're doing that week. So you really have to want it and to have to be bought in. Let me give you an example. So if we're hungry and we're rushing around, we don't have time, we haven't made a plan, we have nothing in our fridge, nothing, we're on campus, we're going from class to class, whatever it may be. Which plate are we choosing? So the plate on the left. And I can tell you, I'm not trying to hate on fried chicken. I'm from the South, if you can't tell, and I think fried chicken may be in my DNA, but it's not a performance food. It's a party food. And today we're talking about performance foods. The plate on the right takes work. It takes planning. It takes preparation. It also doesn't feel good in the moment. It's delayed gratification. French fries feel really good in the moment. And so the plate on the left is pretty easy. The plate on the right takes a lot of planning and preparation, but it's a way that you build that intrinsic motivation and the discipline to really be a winner. I cannot tell you how many athletes will tell me, I have what it takes. I want to go to the next level. I'll do whatever you say. And after 1 week of working at their nutrition, they've already given up because it takes work, and it's 7 days a week. It's 3 to 4 times a day. When I was a strength coach, I saw athletes 4 to 5 times a week for about 30 minutes to an hour. Food is all day long. You have to make food decisions all the time, and it doesn't really ever take a rest. And so that's why I tell all the athletes that come to me and tell me they've got what it takes and they're ready to do it, that everyone wants to be a winner until it's time to eat like one. So if you really want to know your level of commitment and discipline and your drive, try to be consistent with nutrition. Try to 80% of your day, really focus, have a plan, and eat the foods that are essential to life and growth and transformation, and essential to nourishing your body and helping you reach your goals.
Okay. So 2%, 2% can slow our reaction time.
Yes.
That's incredible. That's incredible. And then I love the intrinsic motivation that if you want to be great, there's no shortcut to being great. It is the hard road. And nutrition is such an important part of that. Let's talk about game day.
Yes, one of my favorites.
We work all summer, we work all fall to get to the 30, hopefully more as teams advance in the tournament, 30, 31 games. And then as we advance more, what are some strategies for nutrition on game day?
Well, what we're trying to do with game day is we're trying to support stamina and stability. So when I think stamina, I think energy. And when I think stability, I think emotional and mental stability. We're not all over the place because the ref made a bad call, or the coach yelled at us, or, the fans are terrible, or something's gone wrong. Like, we're stable and we can stay the course regardless of what is happening in the arena. And I've been to a lot of arenas that are pretty deafening, so it's a lot of pressure, but that is what we're trying to do with nutrition. So let me walk you through that. So the two things that we need to think about on game day with nutrition is, first and foremost, when are we eating? And then secondly, what are we eating? So I'm going to start with when. So here's an example of a schedule. We have an early 2 o'clock game. If we know the pregame meal is pretty set. We have all the other itineraries set. So then we have to figure out the first thing, when are we eating? What is that time difference between the pregame meal and the final minutes of the game? So let me show you this. 5.5 hours. That is a long time if this is your only pregame meal, because you're kind of leaving breakfast up to chance. And we know that college athletes are going to sleep until the last second. They're going to roll out of bed, and they're going to show up for the shoot around with probably nothing on their stomachs. So 5.5 hours. You're in the final throes of the game, which is when the game comes down in a couple of minutes and they're on fumes. So we've got to figure out ways to stack calories. We also know that at a 2 o'clock game, in the final minutes of the game, a normal schedule, that's around 4:30, 4 o'clock, 4:30. They should have had 2 meals in them by then. So we're talking 2,000 calories by that time on a normal day. So we want to stay in tune to the body on that as well. So you have to make it with breakfast. This has got to be not like, roll out of bed and show up at shoot around. We need 600 calories at least, males and female, both athletes. Like, we need at least this amount, because anything less is more of a snack. We need a meal to get more calories in before the pregame meal. And I know I'm with you. Let's not make our players get up roll out of bed. They need to rest as much as possible. So I like to take the JJ Redick approach. He always had in college food around his bed. So 2 a.m. in the morning, he needed some protein because he was very catabolic. He was chugging a little protein shake. So protein shakes, little bars, always had it. You can have this around your bedside table, bananas, bagels. They can roll over, sit up, eat something, roll back and lay down, think about the game, do some visualization techniques, but they've got to get this in. We can have an optional snack before the arena. The only thing that I warn you of is that every time you're eating, we are diverting blood away from the arms and legs and the extremities to the gut. So I really like to try to train eating a pregame meal and eating meals. If we can really stack calories and eat meals, we don't have to really fill all these other little snacks in. We can kind of really shift to game day and not having to kind of eat crackers here and there. To do this, it really takes a lot of training. Most athletes are pretty nervous on game day or very excited, so that can change their appetite. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And obviously a halftime snack, we've got to plan that in. So what are we eating? So we know when we're eating, what are we eating? And I call this a non-negotiable routine. On game day, we don't really want to be thinking about nutrition. We want to think about the ball, the game, the opponent, what we've practiced, what we're seeing, being able to react. So we don't want nutrition in our head. So we have practiced a routine with testing different hydration, testing different kind of foods. And then we have a non-negotiable routine where regardless of how I feel, this comes back to the stability piece. Regardless how I feel, I may be anxious, excited, I'm eating a pregame meal, and I'm going to use calming breaths, diaphragmatic breaths, box breaths, whatever you like to call them, to control my emotions and sit down and chew my food slowly and eat all three macros. I'm getting carbs, I'm getting protein, and I'm getting a fat source. So we're getting all three macros, a very balanced plate, nothing extreme. We don't want a carb load. We don't want to do anything super spicy or heavy. We just want something basic and normal. And we're not looking to stuff ourselves. We're looking just to eat slowly and really chew our food. And then when it comes to hydration or fueling plan during the game, we've tested this at practice. We know what kind of carbs and fats work with our system. We know what kind of combination of water, electrolytes, Gatorade works well. And then we know that we are refueling and hydrating throughout the game at timeouts and at halftime. So you don't have to be like, I wonder if I'm going to eat at halftime or not. We eat at halftime. That's what we do. So it's a non-negotiable. It takes the emotion out of the food and make sure that you stay the course and stay stable. And the biggest thing with post-game meal, we'll talk a little more about what that should be, but we just eat it. Some players get really upset if they've lost, but you have back-to-back games. So regardless of how you feel, regardless if you're upset about making mistakes in the game, you eat your post-game meal because you've got to recover, recalibrate, and get ready for the next game. And we can't waste the recovery period there. Timeouts and substitutions. This is a great way not only to energize the body, because when we're drinking water, we are drinking oxygen. So we're oxygenating our brain, oxygenating our body. It's a great time to stabilize our emotions. So a couple athletes I've worked with this year in practice where they make a sloppy mistake or the coach gets upset with them, then they use the timeout or the substitution to take a couple big breaths to calm the emotions, calm the heart rate. Then they take 2 sips of water. They all have their own little routines with it just to flush the negativity, to be able to address what's happened, flush the negativity, and then oxygenate their body. So you can even capitalize. It's not just about nutrition and hydration. It's also about stabilizing your emotions and staying in control. So deal with what's been dealt, flush it when you drink your sip of water, and then know that you're oxygenating your brain and you're ready for the next play and you're ready to go again. Halftime. The biggest thing here is that the second you get into the locker room, it should be the first thing because we know the coaches will come in a little bit after the players have gotten in there. And when the coaches come in, it's time to address the first half, make sure we're ready for the second period or half, and be able to go hard. So you come right in, you need some hydration, and you need a carb and a fat. Carbs are quick energy. They help with the speed and agility. Fats stabilize you and keep your blood sugar stable and your energy stable to the end. So I like to use half a banana even and a scoop of peanut butter and a little Gatorade cup. And athletes know, regardless of how I feel, I walk into the locker room, I grab my little snack cup, I eat it, and then I sit down, take a couple breaths, and ready for the coach to come in and address us. Final timeout. So this is when I want to talk about kind of electrolyte choices, Gatorade, water, what do we use? Water is the best hydration, and maybe some electrolyte powders that are kind of low in sugar and salt. That's what helps get into the cells fastest. Gatorade is very concentrated, and so the sugar and salt is at a higher kind of pH than blood, and so it's going to pull water from the muscles and from the blood. So it's more of an energy drink. It's more of like I'm the last couple minutes of the game, and I'm starting to kind of feel foggy, feel a little slow. My energy's starting to give out. That's a great time to use Gatorade, but I'm careful to use it too early on in the game because the sugar and salt could spike your blood sugar and then crash you. And we don't want any kind of energy ups and downs. So we kind of keep the hygroscopic Gatorade, or we mix it with water, or you have like a little water cup, a little Gatorade cup, and you can kind of swig to at the time to dilute it early on in the game so that we're not pulling too much water out of the muscles and the blood. So the last 5 minutes of a game, great time just to kind of wake the brain up, chug a little Gatorade, but I like to make sure that we've practiced how these different energy drinks, Gatorades, electrolytes, different powders people may use, how they affect you, because the higher concentrated drink can sometimes slosh in the stomach. So we don't want players on the court thinking about, I don't feel as good, I don't like running fast because now something's sloshing in my stomach. So I like to keep things kind of light. I like to use some electrolyte powders or very diluted Gatorade until the final timeout. Post game, this is when our bodies are on fire. There's been a lot of breakdown, inflammation, a lot of intensity. And so the goal here, I'm just going to give you one big takeaway here. We've already talked about the non-negotiable of that we eat our food. So we eat, but if you really want to combat the fire and recover and get fresh for the next day, you want to think green. Anything green you can get in your athletes really combats the fire. You may say, well, I'm in the middle of nowhere and the only option we have is a Zaxby's or a McDonald's. Sometimes we travel with little green powders and we can mix them in water if you don't have any options anywhere. But green is powerful because it has magnesium, which repairs and restores muscles. It has glutathione and nitrates that help detox the blood. Chlorophyll detoxes the blood and kind of gets rid of all the damage and buildup that's happened from the game. So anytime, post game, I'm like, we've got to get greens in us, and we travel with greens just in case we don't have access.
Rewind and teach us a little bit more about practicing. I've practiced against a 2-3 zone. I've practiced against the press. I mean, we practice all the different details. Practicing an eating routine. Talk a little bit more for our coaches about practicing an eating routine. And then you mentioned late game, practicing what is important and what will be most helpful for our athletes, for our players in what they drink.
So when I say practice, that's a great question. I usually have simple little assessments. You can write it on a piece of paper, but literally it's as simple as getting an athlete to write down, how did you feel coming into practice? What did you eat and drink? What did you do during practice? What did you eat and drink? How did you feel? And I have like a little checklist, like energized, had energy, then crashed, felt mentally foggy the whole time, was slow to start. And then finally I picked up energy. And we kind of had this little checklist of their energy, their body. My legs felt heavy the whole time. It can kind of, the sky's the limit, but this is kind of a way I filter, what I'm looking for, mainly looking at energy. And then, what did you do post? And then they can start connecting the dots because there is a science and there's an art to nutrition and everyone's very individual. So they can realize, man, I drank a ton of Gatorade before I came into practice and my stomach hurt and I felt like it took me a while to get going. And then when I did get going, then I felt like my energy crashed. It's like, well, that's not the drink for you. And then it's just simple as sitting down. You as a coach can sit down with your athlete and look at it and be like, you know what? Just sometimes talking these things out loud, it's like light bulbs go off. You don't have to have a degree to be able to connect the dots about how foods make you feel. And you could just kind of test it out and trying different things. So there's a huge spectrum of carbs. Some people do well with fruit carbs. Some people do well with like the starchy carbs of bagels and bars and bananas and not the, oranges and stuff. So it's just something you test out at practice, make it really simple and just have little checklists and little assessments where you can ask these questions.
And then these routines, these nutrition routines, they have to be non-negotiable.
Yes. And I'll tell you, it doesn't need to be special and fancy. On game day, I have this famous line of like, just eat dirt on game day. It's about winning. It's about basketball. We don't need it to be fancy. So some of the best teams I've seen eat the exact same thing every game day. It's not fancy, it's not special, but it's about performance. It's not about pleasure. And
Yeah.
so sometimes what the issues I see is coaches trying to make their players happy, and we mix pleasure and performance. And so don't mix those up on game day. Do that. Be like Harry Green at Liberty, who takes them to the Krispy Kreme after the game. There you can have pleasure. You won the game, everyone gets donuts. I'm okay with that. Like, party then, but don't party before the game. We haven't won it yet. So, keep it simple, and really think about performance and what they need, and just it doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah. How about tournament time?
Yeah.
I've spent most of my career in a one bid league, and tournament time was everything for us. And we wanted to be our very best. We worked all summer, all fall, all winter to have our chance in the tournament. And so here we are playing 3 games in 3 days, or 4 games in 4 days, or even in the ACC last year, NC State, 5 games. Amazing. Went on to the Final Four. So, what are some tips during tournament time?
That is a great question. I love it. The excitement, the energy around tournament time is so fun. But basketball is one of those grueling schedules of any sport that I work with. It's so long. There's so many games, and a lot of people. By the time we get to tournament time, everyone's kind of on fumes. The teams that maybe haven't had as challenging schedule, they're fresh, and then the teams that have really, been having those games where you're winning and losing by 1 point, they're kind of starting to wear out by the time we get to tournament time. So the goal is to be fresh and be on your A game going into tournament time, not on fumes. And so I will share my screen. So with tournament time, what we are really looking at and what we are trying to do with nutrition is to minimize central nervous system fatigue. That is when your brain gets tired. You're emotionally, mentally getting drained. And so what happens is everything starts slowing down. You don't have as much power output. You're not reacting as fast. You're starting to get slow. Ultimately, you look flat. I think a good example of this is National Championship 2021 with Gonzaga and Baylor. Gonzaga came into that national championship playing a nail-biting double overtime game against UCLA, where Baylor came in winning by 19 against Houston. And so Gonzaga looked really flat, which is sad because they were a very talented team, just like Baylor is very talented, but they were pretty drained, and it looked that way. We see that a lot. I saw that in the 2020 at the ACC championship, was with a team that was ranked #1, and we lost in the quarterfinals because our team was flat. Even though our entire starting lineup went pro, we were pretty flat, and it was a really sad loss. And that's what I see a lot at the very end. And so central nervous system fatigue is that brain fatigue. You can push through physical fatigue. My muscles are tired, my joints kind of hurt. Like, you can kind of push through that when you're warmed up and you're in the zone with a game. Very almost impossible to push through that. I'm flat. I've hit a Mack truck has hit me. I'm having brain fog, and I'm just feeling like I've hit a wall. And we don't want any walls when it comes to tournament time. So how do we keep our brain fresh? How do we stay fresh, feel sharp, and ultimately play at our best? The first thing is our essential fatty acids. Your brain is literally water and fat. It's 60% fat. And so our essential fatty acids are so important to nourish and keep our brain fixated and focused. So we're talking plant fats, avocados, nuts and seeds. I love coconut oil, flax seeds, flax oil, egg yolks. Don't leave the egg yolks out. It's where all the choline, which is a neurotransmitter, like all this stuff is vitamin D in our egg yolks. So we want to make sure at every meal, our snacks, that we're taking advantage of getting our fats in. And you'll actually see that the more your players are eating enough of their essential fatty acids, which we want 30% of the diet to support anabolic hormones like testosterone and growth hormone, to support our brain. When they start eating 30% of their diet as essential fatty acids, they'll stop complaining about their joints hurting as well. And then the other thing is colorful carbs. It's very difficult. It's one thing I like about sports nutrition is that athletes can't eat like average people. They can't eat these healthy foods all the time because broccoli does not fuel a good hard training session. Basketball players burn about 7,000 to 8,000 calories in a hard training day. You can't run on broccoli. And so but your body needs these things to recover and to stay fresh. And the polyphenols and the antioxidants found in these colorful carbs really nourish and recover the brain. Very important, especially the purple and blue. Blueberries, purple, cabbage, like incredible for our brain health and staying fresh. So when are we going to get these in if we can't use these before we train or on hard training days? You have to maximize the training, the post game, and the off days and the days that are lighter. So this is the beauty of sports nutrition and elite level nutrition is we're cycling our carbs. We don't always just eat potatoes, rice, pasta, bread. We use those to fuel our training and we use these colorful carbs to recover and to stay fresh. So the problem in sports is not the breakdown that happens. It's when you get stuck in the breakdown. You get stuck in, instead of breakdown from training and game day, then we recover and then we get stronger and better and we adapt. That cycle, the problem is when you get stuck in the breakdown, and instead of breaking down, recovering, get stronger, better, faster, you're breaking down, not recovering, not getting stronger and faster, and you're just kind of cycling into this breakdown. So these kind of foods are colorful fruits and vegetables we have to have in our diet. We have to sneak them in everywhere we can, post training and recovery.
We'll have coaches from all different levels watch this from all around the world. And we have all different types of budgets. Our Power Four friends will be having a really significant nutrition budget, and we'll work our way down from there. So for our coaching friends that have a limited budget, but they desire to have a nutrition program that is as beneficial as it can be, what would be some advice for them, Melissa, that you would give them, our coaching friends with limited budgets?
I want to first encourage you that I can work with any budget. Like budget is not going to be your barrier. It's athlete buy-in that will be your barrier. So whatever your budget is, don't be discouraged. I've been able to figure out options for any and every budget. Still work with all kind of budgets. So it's athlete buy-in. That is kind of your hardest thing to do. But let me show you an example and we'll just kind of talk through that real quickly. Honestly, having a lower budget is usually an advantage because you can't cater to the athletes. It's like, hey, this is what we have. So that's actually an advantage. It makes your players disciplined. It kind of eliminates kind of the hand holding that is sometimes difficult when you have all the bells and whistles. So it's actually an advantage to have probably a lower budget with nutrition. Of a team that I work with, for their pregame meal, this is all they could afford, which is bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit from McDonald's, $3.19 a person, 460 calories. My biggest issue with this, first and foremost, is that it's the pregame meal, and we need more calories in our players besides 400 calories, 460. This was for a male team. So need more calories first and foremost. So let me just show you. I really look for grocery stores. This is the cheapest way to eat food. So if you look at this, I can get more calories in my player if I went to the grocery store and got a big 1 or 2 jars. This is for a 20-player team. 1 to 2 jars of almond butter, actually for the whole staff too. So 20 people, 1 to 2 jars of almond butter, 3 tubs of Greek yogurt, banana, bagels. Everyone gets their own bagel. Everyone gets their own banana. They got a lot more calories, almost 200 more calories, and we actually cost us less money. So $2.30. So the goal is to kind of figure out ways to use the grocery stores wherever you are. Hotels are really great about letting you stock and store stuff. So I'm always, don't feel ashamed of saying, hey, we went and got a bunch of bagels. Can we keep them in your pantry at the hotel so we can serve our team the next day? Takes a little work, takes a little preparation, but this is nutrition. It's not complicated. The biggest barrier is that it takes work. It takes buy-in. It takes planning and preparation. That's the biggest barrier. But if you plan and prepare and know what you're doing, it's really simple to get more nutrition, more calories in your players at a lower price.
What would you say as we close? What would you say if you had a chance to talk to our players, the coaches that are watching, if you were giving 3 tips to players? I know you're big on buy-in. So I know that's going to be one of them. I know you got to be intrinsically motivated. And I know how important nutrition is. So we've got to produce buy-in. We have to be educated on how to produce buy-in. What would you say, and give a couple tips to coaches to tell their players about buy-in?
The greatest way to get buy-in is for you as a coach to do it and commit to it. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to be perfect. We're never looking for perfection. We're just looking for consistent effort and that you're committed to it and that you're trying and working. I can tell you, I can come with all the bells and whistles and really work hard, but unless the coach and the leadership of the team is committed to being excellent and committing to nutrition, I'm kind of dead in the water. So the coach is where the magic happens, and I've seen it, and it takes time. So the other piece of advice is don't be alarmed that it takes time. I saw a team that committed to it. The coaching staff committed to nutrition. It took 4 years, but at the end of the fourth year, they went to the dance for the first time in program history. So you will get results. It just takes time. So you commit because you're the magic. Leadership is where it happens. It takes time, so don't be alarmed by that or discouraged by that. But man, when you get breakthrough, you're unleashed. So get excited. Get excited of how it can really transform not just performance, but your life.
That's great. Thank you so much, Melissa. This has been amazing for our coaches. As coaches have more questions,
Yes.
how could they contact you?
You can email me, melissa@performstrong.org, on Instagram. So if that's where you live, you can shoot me a message at performstrong on Instagram.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thank you, coaches, for joining in with us to talk about nutrition, to help your players perform the very best they can on and off the court. At Nations of Coaches, we desire to serve you. We want to help you be the best that you can be to leave a legacy of excellence. So please contact us if you have questions, nationsofcoaches.com. If you have questions for me or want help in any way, I'm at Radebaugh at nationsofcoaches.com. Thank you for being with us. It has been an honor to be with you, Melissa. Thank you
Yeah.
for your elite expertise in this area. It's going to really help our coaches, and I'm very, very thankful. Thank you, coaches, for joining in. We're praying for you, and God bless.